September, 1954. A small town in Ohio. 6:47 in the morning. Eleanor Elia Marsh, a 24-year-old telephone exchange operator, sat before her vanity as the mirror clicked softly into place. The smell of Pond's cold cream filled the room. A stiff crinoline slip rested neatly over the chair. The radiator hissed in the corner, and church bells rang from 2 blocks away. Ellie dressed with almost surgical care. Her gloves had to match her shoes. Every hairpin had to sit exactly where it belonged. One mistake, one rumor, one raised eyebrow from a neighbor, could destroy everything she had worked so hard to build. What looked like an ordinary Tuesday morning was actually governed by a code nobody wrote down, but everybody obeyed. This is a countdown of 5 forgotten rules that could ruin a woman's reputation in a single afternoon, and stay with me, because the final rule explains every single one before it. Beyond Ellie's bedroom window. America in 1954 seemed bright and perfect. The war was over. New houses filled the suburbs. Families bought shiny cars and modern kitchens. Magazines celebrated the smiling housewife as the picture of success, while returning soldiers reclaimed jobs and settled into a new life. But beneath the polished surface, something else was happening. People judged goodness by appearances. Reputation was not always about character. It was about what others thought they saw. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. Employers listened to gossip. Churches guarded what they believed was proper. Even other women measured one another by invisible standards. A careless word, a dress that seemed too bold, arriving home too late, any of it could become a story that followed a woman for years. These expectations created a quiet feeling of dread. No alarms sounded. No warnings were spoken. Yet somehow, everyone knew the stakes. And that was what made life in 1954 so unsettling. The rules that mattered most were often the ones nobody ever wrote down. For many women in 1954, the first rule seemed harmless. Look perfect. Ellie understood this better than most. Before leaving for work, she checked everything one last time. Her white gloves matched her shoes. Her lipstick was soft, never too bright. Her hemline fell at exactly the proper length. Her stockings were smooth and free of snags. None of this was written into law. But everyone knew. Women's magazines, department stores, and advice columns all pushed the same message. A respectable woman looked neat, modest, and polished at all times. Looking careless was dangerous, because people believed appearances revealed something deeper. That was where the fear began. A run in a stocking was not just a torn piece of fabric. A neighbor might see it and think she was careless. Carelessness, some people believed, led to poor judgment. And poor judgment, well, that raised questions no woman wanted whispered behind her back. It sounds strange now. But in many towns, tiny details carried heavy meaning. A glove forgotten at home, lipstick that seemed too bold, a skirt thought to be too short. These small things could become stories. And stories traveled quickly. Which meant a woman was expected to guard not only her reputation, but every inch of fabric, every curl of hair, and every shade of color she wore. And that pressure followed her everywhere. Looking proper was only the beginning. In 1954, being seen mattered almost as much as being good. People noticed who a woman spent time with. They noticed where she went. They noticed how long she stayed. And sometimes, they noticed things that were never really there. Ellie learned this lesson early. At the telephone exchange, she worked beside men and women every day. Most conversations meant nothing. A joke shared over lunch, a ride home after work, a friendly chat outside the building. Yet even innocent moments could turn dangerous, once other eyes became involved. A woman laughing too loudly with a man who was not her husband could attract attention. It did not matter if the man was her boss, a family friend, or simply a coworker. By sundown, people might already be talking. One person would mention what they saw. Another would add details that never happened. Before long, whispers became facts in the minds of others. Church groups heard them. Neighbors repeated them. And reputations could suffer from nothing more than an ordinary afternoon. That was the frightening part. You did not have to do something wrong. You only had to appear wrong. One evening, as Ellie stepped onto the sidewalk outside work, she smiled and waved goodbye to a fellow employee. Across the street, a curtain moved. Someone was watching. We're halfway down this list, and this is where the rules stop being about appearances and start being about control. Before we go further, if stories like this pull you back in time the way they pull me back, hit subscribe to Vanished Living. This is where forgotten history like Ellie's gets remembered properly, every single week. Because the next rule was not written in any etiquette book. It was written into her paycheck. For Ellie, the rules did not end when she stepped outside her front door. They followed her to work. Many offices and telephone companies in the 1950s expected women to fit a very narrow picture. Marriage itself could end a career. Some women were required to resign after becoming wives. Others knew that showing a pregnancy at work could mean losing their position long before the baby arrived. Even hairstyles could become a problem. Hair had to be neat. Uniforms had to fit perfectly. In some workplaces, women were expected to wear girdles beneath their clothes. Looking proper was not simply encouraged. It was expected. And sometimes, it went even further. Before the morning shift began, supervisors could inspect the women under their care. These appearance checks were very real. A crooked collar, untidy hair, too much lipstick, even stockings judged to be unsuitable could bring sharp words or written warnings. Everything was examined. Everything was noticed. To modern eyes, it feels cold. But for women like Ellie, it was simply part of another Tuesday. At 6:55 that morning, she sat at her switchboard with perfect posture and a practiced smile. The callers on the other end of the line heard only her voice. They never saw the invisible rules sitting beside her. Or how much power those rules really held. That evening, after work, Ellie returned to her small apartment and placed her purse on the kitchen table. The room was quiet. Only the ticking clock and the soft hum of the refrigerator broke the silence. On her dresser sat a letter she had read a dozen times. A marriage proposal. Anyone looking in from the outside would have called it wonderful news. But Ellie saw something else. She saw numbers. Rent. Groceries. The payments on her car. The money she sent to help her mother. And she saw what marriage might take away. In many workplaces during the 1950s, women were expected to leave their jobs after becoming wives. A husband was supposed to provide. A wife was supposed to stay home. That was the dream everyone talked about. But dreams could come with a price. Without her job, Ellie would lose more than a paycheck. She would lose the voice that answered hundreds of calls each day. She would lose the independence she had worked so hard to build. She would lose the life she had made for herself. So night after night, the letter remained unanswered. Not because she did not believe in love, but because she was trying to solve a question no one had prepared her for. How much of herself was she expected to give away? Just to become somebody's wife. And the next rule would make that question even harder. By 1954, Ellie had become one of the best operators in the building. She was fast. She was dependable. She rarely missed a day. But deep down, she understood something nobody said out loud. There was a ceiling above her. Women like Ellie were expected to remain operators, secretaries, or clerks. Those jobs were seen as temporary. Someday, people assumed, a husband would appear. A family would follow. And another young woman would take her place. Promotion was not impossible. But it was rare. The future had already been decided for many women before they ever walked through the office door. And sometimes, even that future could disappear overnight. All it took was a rumor. A supervisor seeing a man drop her home in his car. A neighbor repeating a story she did not understand. A whisper passed from one desk to another. Until suddenly, the office atmosphere changed. No shouting. No accusations. No explanation. Just quiet smiles, closed doors, and the words nobody wanted to hear. For the good of the office. That was often enough. A woman could lose years of hard work because of something never proved. Because in 1954, reputation could matter more than truth. And that was the cruel secret hiding behind every rule on this list. They were never really about gloves, or lipstick, or even gossip. They were about something much bigger. And perhaps that was the number one rule of all. Every rule on this list grew from one quiet belief society rarely said out loud. A woman's worth was seen as temporary. Borrowed, not owned. And something that could be taken away the moment she stepped out of line. Some rules were written. Company handbooks. Dress codes. Lists of what was proper and what was not. Some were official policies. Marriage bans. Invisible ceilings that stopped women from moving higher. And some rules were never written anywhere at all. They simply passed from mother to daughter. Neighbor to neighbor. Whisper to whisper. That was why they felt so powerful. And so hard to escape. As the sun rose over that small Ohio town in 1954. Ellie slipped on her gloves and closed the front door behind her. She walked toward another ordinary day. Not knowing who might be watching. Not knowing what stories might be told before sundown. And in that way, she was no different from countless women who came before her. Their lives may have looked perfect from the outside. But behind the smiles and the stockings, there were rules nobody ever needed to say aloud. If you enjoy uncovering forgotten history, subscribe to Vanished Living for more stories hidden beneath the surface of the past. And tell me in the comments, what piece of history would you like us to uncover next?